Tov, today's Daf Yomi is dedicated for a Yeshua for Am Yisrael, Hatzalah for the Shuyim, Mashmira for the Chayalim. Daf Yomi, we're going to start on the bottom line of Lamed Hayim Abayis, 35b at the very bottom. Dr. Gemara, Amar of Yirmi, Apamim Shneim Bechatas, Pamim Shneim Ba'asham. Pamim Shasocher Bechatas, Vashol Ba'asham, Pamim Shasocher Ba'asham, Vashol Bechatas. So as a background, we discussed yesterday in a scenario where a person rented a cow from an owner and then he lent it back to that same owner. And under those circumstances, the Gemara talks about the responsibilities of of whether or not there's a dispute, whether or not if an accident happened in the domain of the borrower, he has to pay the renter, but the renter might not have to pay back the owner because the renter is not responsible for an accident. So now the Gemara discusses that Rabbi Yirmiyah says that sometimes in a circumstance where there's a renter and a borrower, sometimes both of them have to bring a chatas, and sometimes both of them have to bring an asham. So first we pause and say, why would somebody bring a korban chatas? That if they took a false oath, a shvuas bitoy, and sometimes they both have to bring an asham. That's if where they take a false oath, but it has to do with costing the other person money. So now we're going to have a review of the laws of a watchman, when they're responsible. That a renter is going to be responsible for theft and loss, but he's not responsible for a total accident. And also, a borrower is responsible for accidents, but he's not responsible if it dies in the normal course of its work. Like, for example, if you rent a horse to go, if you borrow a horse to go horseback riding, and in the normal course of horseback riding, the horse breaks its leg, that's not the borrower's fault because he was doing it what it was borrowed for. And Rabbi Yirmiyah says, sometimes it will be the same oath, and they'll both have to bring a sin offering, meaning that we'll see why. On top of sometimes they'll both have to bring a korban asham, and we'll see why. Sometimes the renter has to bring a sin offering, and sometimes v'ashol ba'asham, and the borrower brings the asham. And sometimes the renter brings an asham, and the borrower brings a sin offering. Says the Gemara, ha-ketzad. So how does this happen? Kfiras mamon asham. That if there's an oath which is a denial of money, then you have to bring a korban asham. Bitois vasayim. But if you bring an oath which is just a lie, but it's not costing the other person money, that's a chatas. Pamim sheshneim b'chatas. How do we have the situation where both of them have to bring the sin offering? Could go in shemesa kedarka. The animal died in a normal manner, so it's an accident. Va'amru nansa. So, and they claimed, so the animal died in the normal course of activity, but they lied and they said that it was stolen by robbers. Basically, they said it was stolen by robbers. So therefore, under these circumstances, what's going to be the case? So the renter, the beikach or beikach miftar, the renter, either way, whether it died accidentally or whether it just was stolen by robbers, either way, he's going to be exempt. So even though he lied here, he's miftar potter. So since either way he would have been exempt, so therefore he has to bring a chatas, a sin offering. But the borrower showed the beikach or beikach chiyuvim mechayev. Either way, either scenario, he'd be liable. Therefore, he also brings a chatas because he lied, but he didn't cost the owner money. Next scenario, pamim sheshneim ba'asham. Sometimes they would both have to bring a korban asham. It was stolen. The amro meisamach masmalacha. So they claim it was stolen, in which case the renter would have been exempt and the borrower would have been liable. And they said it died during the normal course of work, in which case they both would have been exempt. So the travayu kakafri memona, that both of them, the renter would have been responsible for theft and loss, and so would have the borrower. So they both are denying a monetary claim, because they would have been responsible for kapatri nafshayim. They would have been responsible for theft, and they're exempting themselves by claiming that it died in this manner, in which they both be exempt. How we say socher bechatatz v'shol ba'asham? How would be a case where the renter would have a sin offering, meaning he didn't cost money, and the borrower would be an asham? Could go in shemesa kedarka, where basically it died in the normal manner, i.e., let's say it had a heart attack. And they said mesa machmas mocha, and they claimed that it died during work. So the renter, socher the benkach miftar, both cases he'd be exempt. So therefore chayev. So therefore he's going to be responsible only to bring a sin offering, a chatas. But the borrower, the mechayev b'meisa kedarka, the borrower, since he be responsible if it died in a normal manner, the kapater navshe b'meisa machmas malacha, but he's and so therefore he's trying to exempt himself by saying that it died during work activity. Therefore, he's trying to cost the owner money. So therefore, he brings an asham. Sochar ba'asham v'shol b'chatas. How could it be that the renter would have to bring an asham and the borrower an offering? You go into nignava. It was stolen. And they both took an oath that it died in the normal manner. Since the renter is responsible with theft, he's trying to exempt himself by saying it just died in natural causes. Therefore, he has to bring a asham because he tried to save money. But the borrower either claim he's going to be responsible, so therefore he brings a sin offering. And the Gemara says, well, this is all so obvious. What indeed is Rabbi Yirmiyah teaching us? This is such an obvious teaching. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yirmiyah is trying to tell us he doesn't paskin like Rabbi Ami. Because Rabbi Ami's position was any oath that the court makes you take, we're not going to say that you're going to have to bring a sin offering of shvuas bitoy. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Ami? Because it says, nefesh kisi shaval v'atebes v'sayim. A person will take an oath to levatebes v'sayim. Kisi shava me'atzma means he has to take it on his own. Kamash Mulan. So therefore, Rabbi Yirmiyah is telling us, I don't pass like Rabbi Ami. Dulo Rabbi Ami. So in Mar we learned shomer shemas or a shomer. Let's say, so now we're going to the next sugya of watchman who hands over his responsibility to a different watchman. So shomer shemas or a shomer. So the watchman hands over his responsibility to another watchman. Rav Amar Pata. Rav is going to say he's exempt from everything that he would have been exempt for, Rashi says, if he himself had guarded it. Meaning, say, if whatever he himself would have been responsible, let's say he's a shomer chinam, he's exempt from everything except for negligence. So therefore, he gives it over to another person to watch. He has the same exemptions. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev. Rabbi Yochanan says he's responsible for everything, even for accidents. So he's always going to be Chayev. So Amar Abaye Adami the Rav Omibaye. So Abaye says, according to Rav's logic, not only in a case of Shomer Chinam Shemaso Shomer Sachar, not only in a case where the unpaid watchman gave it over to a paid watchman, Diluye Ale Lishmirasa, where he made a higher level of Shmira, Elafilu Shomer Sachar Shemaso Shomer Chinam, but even if it was a paid watchman, and they gave it to an unpaid watchman, the Guruye Garo Lishmirasa, where is a lesser level of watching, we're still going to say he's exempt, according to Rav Potter. My timer, Damasaro Ben Das, because he gave it over to a person who was a Ben Das. This person had the ability to watch it. Well, time to Rabbi Yochanan, according to Rabbi Yochanan, says Abaye, Lo mibaye, not only a Shomer Sachar, Shemazo, Shomer Chinam, not only a paid watchman who gave it to an unpaid watchman, the Guruye Garo Shmiraso, where he's diminishing the level of Shmira, is he going to be responsible? Even a unpaid watchman gave it to a paid watchman, where he raises the level of watching, he's going to be chayev. Because he says, I do not want my deposit to be in the hands of somebody else. Says Rav Chisda, Amar Rav Chisda, Hada Rav, that which Rav said, that Shomer Shemaso Shomer is potter, that you're exempt if you hand it over to another watchman. He didn't say this explicitly, we just derived that this was Rav's position from a general rule. Why? Because there are these gardeners, the Kol Yoma have a mefakti marayo gabada hisafta. Every day they would place their gardening tool, their hose, with a specific safta, with a grandmother, Yoma with an older woman. Yoma chadav gedinu gabe chamina. One day they They switched and they left it with somebody else. Shama Koraki Be'elua. He heard the sound of a wedding. Nafak, the guy who was watchman, he went out to the wedding. Also, Afkadinu Gaba Dahisafta. But in the meantime, he left the tools with that same older woman. Also, Ignav Marayo. But in the meantime, while he went out and came back, it was stolen. Also, Kame to Rav. So then he came back to Rav Upatre. Rav said he's exempt. So the man, the Chazas Savar Mishim Shomer Shemaso Shomer Potter, the one who said he's exempt because it says Raza the position, the watchman who gave it to another watchman is exempt, and so therefore he thought that was why he's exempt in this case. Veloi, but it's not true. But it's not true. Says Rav Chisda. You misinterpreted Rav's ruling. Why? Shani Asam the Kol Yoma Inu Gufayo Gaba Dahisafta Havam Fakti. No, because every other day they would give it to that Safta to watch. So this proves that they trusted her. So that's why Rav says Potter. But in general, we don't know that Rav would say he's Potter. Yasef Rav Ami v'kamarlo hashmaita. So Rav Ami was sitting there and he taught this teaching about the Machogsi Rav and Rabbi Yochanan with the teaching of Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says Shomer Shemaso Shomer is Chayiv. Esri Rabbi Amar Barmamo Rabbi Ami. So Rabbi Amar Barmamo challenges Hasocher from our Mishnah. Hasocher Paro Mechavero V'Shua Achar U'Meisa Gedarcha Yishava Hasocher Shemeisa Gedarcha V'Shal Masham L'Socher. Our Mishnah said that if the borrower borrowed it from the renter and then the animal dies, the borrower has to pay the renter. But so if Rabbi Yochanan is correct that he's Chayiv V'Misa. And but whereas the renter doesn't have to pay the owner in that case, and if Rabbi Yochanan is correct, he said the owner should have said, "You have to pay me. I didn't want my deposit to be in the hand of somebody else." So Rabbi Ami responds, "That he gave him permission to lend it out. The owner gave him rishus. The owner says, "Well, if that's the case, if he gave him permission." If it is the case that he gave him permission to lend it out, therefore then the borrower should have to pay the owner because he really had borrowed it straight from the owner. No, he says he says you do what you want with it. I don't care. Whatever you do, what you want. I mean, say Rashi says if you want to lend it out while you in the days you're renting, we don't care. And so therefore the renter is the one who lent it out, and the owner can't say we didn't want it. So then Gemara says, Masiv Ramin Barchama, another question. Hamavkin Mos, Eitzel Chavero. So somebody, so says the Mishnah, which we're going to get to God willing on Daf Mem Beis. Hamavkin Mos, Eitzel Chavero, Tzaro Viv Shilon Lachar. If he takes his money, somebody gave the money to a person as a deposit, and the person takes it and he holds it behind him in a bag, which is a very bad way to watch money. Or Misaran of no ubito aktanim, or gave it to his young children to watch. And he closes the door improperly in front of them. Then he's going to be responsible for the loss. Chayiv shalosh shomer kederach hashomrim. Being watched in a normal way of shomrim. Taima de ketanim. What's the reason why we say he's going to be chayiv? Because he did not watch it because he gave it to little children. And so therefore he's going to be responsible. Hagadolim, but the implication is that if he gave it to adult children, he's going to be potter. He's going to be exempt. Amai, name is the question of Rabbi Yochanan. Name away, let him say, let the owner say, you shouldn't be exempt. I didn't want my deposit to be in the hands of somebody else. So says Rabbi, no, this case is different. Why? Because we say Kohen Mafkid on top of Bava Metzia. Whoever gives a deposit, he's giving it with the understanding that the person is going to give it to both that he's giving it to the whole family, and the wife and children can also watch it. So therefore, it was like he had permission to give it to his children. Amri Nardai, and Nardai taught Nami. We can infer this from the case. Dikatani, because it says, Osha Misaran of no Bito Akatanim Chayiv. If he gives it to his younger children, he's going to be responsible. However, no Bito Akdolim Potter. Okay, yeah, the implication is to his older children he will be exempt, but Mikal Da'acherim. But it also implies that for other people, it wouldn't matter if it was other people, he'd be responsible, even if they were adults, and that's exactly like Rav Yochanan. Vimke listen ketanim stama, because otherwise it would just say he gave it to young children. But from here we say it's only his own young children that he's responsible, but everybody else's adult children he's going to be chayav also. So Shema Mina. And indeed we have a proof here for Rav Yochanan, but even though we have a Shema Mina, Amarava Hilchos Shomer Shemaso Shomer is chayav. Rava says the law is like Rabbi Yochanan, exactly like here. We have a proof that a Shomer Shemaso a Shomer, one watchman gave it to another watchman, is responsible. When we buy Shomer Sachar Shemaso Shomer Chinam, the Geruye Garo. So not only if it was a Shomer Sachar, like Abai said, not only if it was a paid watchman who gave it to an unpaid watchman, where it's a lesser level of Shmira, or Afilu Shomer Chinam Shemaso Shomer Sachar, even if it was a Shomer Chinam, an unpaid watchman, who gave it over to a Shomer Sachar, to a paid watchman, he's going to be responsible. My time at the Amar way, because he could say to him, because he could always say, I trusted you with an oath. I didn't trust that person, because now he's going to have to take an oath, and I don't trust him with an oath. And so therefore you had no permission. Itmar, so the Gemara says, now we have another sugya, which we, of course, remember from when we discussed it in Bava Kama, Imar Pasha Bava Yatzel Agam. So let's say we're talking about a case where he was negligent at the beginning, and then the animal died through an accident. So he was negligent, and the animal went out to the swamp, Umesa Kedarka, but then it died from natural causes. So let's say in this case, is he going to be responsible if he's typically exempt for natural causes death? So Abaye Mishmei the Rav Amar Chayev. Abaye says he's in the name of Rabba says he's responsible, and Rava Mishmei the Rabba Amar Pater. But Rava, in the name of Rava, says he's Pater. So we have a machokas basically between Abaye and Rava. Abaye Mishmei the Rabba Amar Chayev. In the case of Tchilas Pshia Sofa Ba'onis, where it starts with negligence and ends in an accident, he says he's responsible. Why? Called Daina the Lodan, and not only that, he says called Daina the Lodana Ki Aidana. He says not only is he responsible, but any judge who doesn't judge a case like I taught is not a judge. Not only according to the one who says that if you start with negligence and you end up with an accident, you're responsible. Even the one in general says you're exempt, but in this case you'd be responsible. Why? Because we could say here that he went out to the swamp through your negligence, and he didn't just die from natural causes in the swamp. The odor, the air in the swamp is what killed him. And Rabba Mishmei the Rabba Amar Pater. Rabba says he's Pater because and not only that, Rabba says called Dainu Dodain Ki Aidina Lav Dainu. Any judge who doesn't judge like I said is not a judge. Only by Laman number Tchilas Pshia so for bonus Pater to Pater, not only according to one who says in general, if you start with negligence and end with an accident, you're exempt. Even according to one who says you're responsible, Hacha Pater, he's going to be exempt here. My timer, because what's the reasoning? The Amrinan, we say Mal Hamaves, Mali Hacha, Mali Hasam, and there's a very powerful phrase. So Rava says, even according to the one who says that in general, that if you start with negligence and end with an accident, you're responsible. Here, in this case, where he dies of natural causes in the swamp, we're going to say exempt, because the angel of death will say, I don't care where you are. When your time's up, when you're supposed to die from a natural causes, the angel of death doesn't care where you are. It reminds us of the Gemara in Sukkot Daf Nun Gimel Amid Beis, where the person overhears the angel of death saying he's going to kill him tomorrow, and so he runs with Shlomo HaMelech, and so he runs to the gates of Luz where nobody died to try and escape, and the angel of death killed him at the gates, and then the angel of death was laughing. He said, I was supposed to kill him exactly to the place that he ran to. So we see the angel of death has your number. You're not going to defeat it. So the Gemara says, moving on, Modi Abaye himself would admit, hold on. Abaye himself would admit that if the cow went back to the owner's house, who may say and he died the potter, there he would be exempt. My time, the hadra because he returned. There you can't claim the swamp, the odor of the swamp killed him. Umodi Rava kol echad de igneva ganav ba'agam umeisa kedarka beganav dechayev. And Rav himself admits that any time If somebody stole it from the swamp and then it died normally, in the house of the Ganav, he's responsible. My timer. What's the reasoning? Because even if the angel of death had not done anything, but based on the Ganvu Kaima, it would still be in the house of the robber, and so therefore he would still be responsible in that case. So the Gemara says, "Amoy Abaye or Rava." So Abaye who says to us, "So bonus is chayiv." He says to Rava, "With the dacht amras mal chamavas mal yacha mal yasam." You say the angel that says, "What do I care where you are?" Hi de usve Rabbi Abba Bar Mamo Rabbi Ami. That question which Rabbi Ami Bar Mamo asked Rabbi Ami from our Mishnah, why is he exempt in the case where the borrower borrowed from the renter? Why doesn't he have to pay to the owner? And meaning say it was a question on Rabbi Yochanan. And we said the answer was where he had permission. According to you, he could have given a different answer. What do we care where the angel of death doesn't care where you are? He didn't even if he didn't have permission. So Rabbi responds back to Abaye with the according to you, who said that the reason is that Shomer Shemasol Shomer is going to be chayiv because he says that you said because he says he's always responsible because he could say I didn't want my deposit to be in the hands of somebody else. We could challenge you from the Mishnah. Why is the socher exempt when he dies in the end of the shul? And about that, Rabbi Ami could answer why he's answered. But with the did Amina. But according to me, that I say that the reason why he's responsible is not because the Mafkid says to the Shomer that you believe and I don't believe. I believe you with an oath and not believe with an oath. It's not a question. The Gemara says, "Masav Rami Bar Chama." And now Rami Bar Chama challenges from a different case. He says, "Hela l'roshe." Sukin. Let's say he challenges Abaye. Abaye says that Shomer Shemos or Shomer that Chilasa of Pshia Sofa Bonus is Chayiv. He says let's he takes it up to the top of a cliff. Vinaf when it falls, Ainza Onas. The Mishnah says if you take the cow up to a cliff and the cliff falls down or the sheep, that's not an Onas because he took it to the wrong place and therefore he's going to be it's negligence and therefore he's Chayiv. Which implies Hamesa Kedarka, but if it dies up there from natural causes, Areza Onus Upater, well then that's an accident. He's exempt. It's a question on Abaye. So why would you say he's exempt according to you? Why don't we say that he died from the air in the mountains, or else maybe he was tired from climbing Mount Everest, and that's why he died. So it's a question on Abaye. So the Gemara says, no, he didn't bring him up in negligence. He brought him up because there was great grazing up there. So that's what the normal manner was. Well, if that's the case, even if it falls down, he should be exempt because it's an accident. Gemara says, he should have held the animal, he didn't hold it. Well, but if that's the case, how can we explain the first cause of the Mishnah? Where it says, that he went up to the top of the mountain and fell off, he's going to be exempt because it's an accident. So, but if you're saying that he should have hold him, he didn't hold him, why in that case is he going to be exempt? He should have hold him, he should be responsible. So, also no, the problem here is that even in the case where he was trying to hold the animal, but he wasn't able to, so therefore he's going to be exempt because he wasn't able to hold the animal. All right, we'll stop. If anyone has any questions, happy to address. And